Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast. Here with your host, Landon Oliver, with my co host, Andrew Scott. What's up, dude?
That's cool, man.
Yeah. This is officially time to get close to the season, and we are starting off with our 8-week preview of all 8 divisions in the NFL. And we will be ending this right before the season starts with our last division. And then we will have our special season preview show then. But we wanted to time this right, and we timed it perfectly. So today we're going to be previewing the NFC South.
Yeah, man, I'm ready to get into some football. Like we ever really took a break from from talking football, but it's nice to kind of shift away from fantasy a little bit. Now we've got our main dynasty league rookie draft behind us. We got some fantasy podcasts behind us, and now we get to get back to like the real football talk. So I'm excited to put some, stake our claim on who we think is going to have good seasons, bad seasons, all the in between, all that good stuff. Man, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And like he said, this is not a fantasy podcast. For all of our fantasy stuff, go ahead and listen to the last probably month or two that we've done with our
Mhm.
fantasy stuff. This is going to be real life implications on how we think the divisions are going to play out, the additions that we like, some of the losses that we don't like, and just general, just basically division previews. So today we're starting with the NFC South with the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we will start from the graph. If you can't see the graphic on the screen, if you're listening to this instead of watching it, we're going to be going Falcons, Panthers, Saints, and we're going to hit the Bucks last. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. The Atlanta Falcons. Give me some thoughts on them. How do you think their offseason has kind of turned out? Obviously, we know the big Julio deal that happened, but what are your thoughts on the Falcons?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we touched on that as it happened. So I'm not gonna get too much into that. If you want to hear our reaction on Julio, you can go back a few episodes. We discussed that on the front end of a podcast where we did a dynasty rookie mock draft. So, but um, I love the head coach hire, bringing in Arthur Smith. I thought that was a slam dunk. I think this team is even without Julio, I think the offense is underrated. And I think that Arthur Smith is going to bring some of that out and show that this is an underrated unit in the league. Um, the thing that worries me on the offensive side is the offensive line still. But I think Matt Ryan is still an above average quarterback in the league. I still like their wide receiver core, even without Julio. I think that Russell Gage is a talented receiver. And then Calvin Ridley obviously should be in for a huge season. The big headliner, the most hyped player in NFL history, Kyle Pitts coming in. And then the addition of Mike Davis at the running back position. I think that Matt Ryan is still set up for success even without Julio. Now the defensive side, obviously there's plenty of question marks there. I like their linebacking unit, but they have virtually no pass rush, and their secondary is pretty spotty too. So I do think that whenever I look at strength of schedule, I actually use, I think Mike Clay does a really good job at outlining strength of schedule because he doesn't just use, like he puts out his whole full projections, of how he thinks that the teams are going to play out based on their additions and subtractions and things like that. Like, he doesn't just go off of last year's record to determine strength of schedule. So I like to use his just because of all that work that he puts into it. And he has them at the 5th best strength of schedule. And so going off of that, even if that's a little bit off, with them being in the top 5 in strength of schedule, the schedule should be pretty favorable for them. And then with the offensive firepower they have, I do think they're going to surprise some people and win a few more games than people think that they will. Now, I still think that this is a below 500 team. The defense, just to me, is not good enough to be an above 500 team. But I don't have them finishing last in the division this year. I think that they will be the 3rd best team in the division this year. So I do think there will be some improvement there. I think the coaching changes are going to go a long way. But yeah, the offensive line and the defense are still a lot of question marks. Too many for me to predict some kind of crazy leap where they finish like second in the division or something like that.
Yeah. And see, I could actually see this team finishing second in the division. I don't have a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
question marks about the offensive line. Obviously, they've got 3 first rounders on that offensive line. Jake Matthews is coming back another year. Matt
Right.
Hensey's there, Chris Lindstrom,
Yep.
and Caleb McCary taking over the right side. So pretty much the only, I guess, kind of issues that they might have would be on the left guard right next to Jake
Yeah.
Matthews.
I think
But
it's going to be Jalen
yeah, I
Mayfield,
was
but
gonna say
I
they
don't know a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
about him though.
yeah, they drafted Jalen Mayfield, who played tackle at Michigan. I think he could slot in there. I think that's a very potent. And then the defense, really, like you said, I do like their linebacker crew. Their secondary, I actually think is on the up and up as well. They drafted AJ Terrell last year, had a very
Hmm.
solid campaign as a rookie. And then the thing, obviously, that me and most fantasy players, especially you, who just got him in first overall in the draft, is how Kyle Pitts kind of comes on. So this is basically like the unicorn of tight ends. So I'm curious to see how him and Hayden Hurst kind of coexist and uh, with that offensive line. And Calvin Ridley, this is his first training camp without Julio. I'm really excited to see how he takes over. I think he's going to have a great season. And then some of those other guys too. Uh, I'm actually a big Russell Gage fan. I think Russell Gage is kind of an
Hmm.
underrated option as well. So that's going to be really interesting. Obviously, I think the first 3 um, pass catching options there are kind of decided, and but pass rusher is for me the biggest thing. They got Dante Fowler last year. Obviously, how that worked out.
Yeah,
Um,
he got paid off the Aaron Donald effect, and
right,
then
exactly.
had the post Aaron Donald regression that seems to happen a lot. So
Yeah, but
that's the biggest issue for me, man. Is it seems like whoever they're playing against, that team's quarterback is just going to have all day to throw the ball.
yeah, there's still some guys out there I think they could look at. I think Melvin Ingram is still out there. I think Justin Houston's still out there. Those would be some guys that I think they should kind of target. And they drafted a rookie as well, pass rusher. We'll see how that works out. Normally those guys take, you know, 2 to 3 years to, kind of come into their own.
Yeah, especially I think the one they drafted was kind of late too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. He wasn't a super high pick, but I mean he's very raw. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. But it's the NFL, you never know.
No, you
It's
don't.
definitely never know. So, but I'm really excited about the offense. Like you said, the defense has some work to do, which it seems like we're always saying that about the Falcons. It's always the defense. Matt Ryan has pretty much solidified and carried that team since he was drafted there.
And just continues to get shit on for it too. It's
Yeah,
crazy,
that
man.
makes no sense.
He's so underrated as a
Yeah,
quarterback to me.
they,
And then that was, I said I wasn't gonna get into it too much, but just briefly, that's why I was upset with the Julio trade. Was if they had a chance to move on from Matt Ryan to go full rebuild, they chose not to do it with Kyle Pitts, and then they traded away Julio. Like Matt Ryan has statistically, Matt Ryan has been so much better with Julio on the field. So
I think
I
yeah, any
just
quarterback was going to be better with Julio on the field.
Right. And so I mean, Kyle Pitts has some huge shoes to fill, man. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And I do think this is another guy that I'll never be able to quit. But I like the fact that they brought in Cordell Patterson too. I think that'll be another extra spark to the offense and to the special teams too. Of course, like
Yeah, and
I think
Mike
that's an
Davis too.
underrated.
Mike Davis is no slouch. He
Hmm.
might not be a household name at running back. Not a lot of people really paid much attention to the Panthers last year, but the guy filled in very, very admirably for Christian McCaffrey and had some really great production for the Panthers last year. So I think given a full-time starting role there, I think by the end of the season, a lot more people are going to know who Mike Davis is at that running back position.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I like Mike Davis a lot too.
Yeah, this
And I think he'll be in for a good year.
Yeah, so like you said, I can see them vaulting, obviously depending on the Saints and how that situation plays out. But at worst, I do think they finished third. But it wouldn't surprise me if they finished second. It definitely wouldn't surprise me. Just because the Saints, which we'll touch on here in a minute, But now going into the other roster here with some other, pretty big additions as well is the Carolina Panthers. Um, obviously Sam Darnold, we know how that worked out in New York. He gets shipped off there to join Joe Brady, and Joe Brady's offense with the Panthers. Matt Rule, I think, is one of the best head coaches, up and coming head coaches in football. I absolutely love that guy. And I really like what they're building there. I still just think I mean, that is a very, very, very young team,
Hmm.
and I still think they're probably a year or two away from actually kind of hitting their stride, depending on what happens with the Sam Darnold trade.
Yeah, that I mean that this team starts and ends with Sam Darnold, basically, because I mean you had you're talking about guys getting an upgrade. I don't think anybody saw a bigger upgrade than Sam Darnold did this offseason, going from the Adam Gase curse to getting to play with Matt Rule and Joe Brady, so and I'm torn on this because I've picked this team to finish last in the division, and that means that Sam Darnold probably isn't going to see a lot of his success. And I want him to see success kind of selfishly because coming out of college, I had him as the best quarterback in that draft class. And then he got stuck with Adam Gase. And, it has not been pretty since he's been drafted. And I would like to see a resurgence to his career. Mostly so my take would look so bad because Josh Allen has not made me look very smart. Now I had Lamar pegged as the second best quarterback in that class, and that hasn't worked out too bad for me. But Sam Darnold has definitely burnt me. So I would like to see that, some improvement there. But yeah, I mean that's the beginning and the end for this guy, for those guys. I mean, in terms of weapons, I talked about nobody saw a bigger improvement from coaching wise, than Sam Darnold. But then now the weapons he's surrounded with, I mean, you've got Christian McCaffrey's going to take so much pressure off the guy, and then the guys that he gets to throw to, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, rookie Terrace Marshall Jr., David Moore. I mean, the running backs and receivers those are two of the better rooms in the league. Now, tight end, we'll see what rookie Tommy Tremble can bring to the team, but
Yeah.
Dan Arnold and Ian Thomas, I mean, that's probably one of the least impressive tight end rooms in the league, in my opinion. So probably not a lot coming from there. Um, and then the defense is, there again, like you said, this is a really young team. You've got AJ Bouye that's still there. You've got Dante Jackson, and then obviously the headliner was, they chose to take J.C. Horn, as opposed to going quarterback. And which me personally, I love the pick. I mean, I think he was the number one corner for both of us
Yeah.
in this class. Going back to the mock draft prep that we did, or the NFL draft prep that we did. So, I do think that it's obviously a work in progress. Safety is still.
Yeah, outside of those guys, yeah, their safety positions kind of up in the air. I love their defensive line now. Absolutely love. Well, I love Brian Burns. He's
Hassan Reddick too.
Yeah, Hassan Reddick. That's a good addition.
Mhm.
Derek Brown, who they drafted. That's another
Yep.
really good addition there. And they
I don't like
took a
I don't
guy.
like much
Well,
on the interior outside of him, but
yeah, well, they took a guy last year, Yatur Gross Matos, out of Penn State. I believe he played at Penn State. Um, and he had a very, very solid year as well. Um, so yeah, this is a very up and coming defense. They still have some holes there at the linebacker and the safety positions that I think they need to plug in. But as far as the offense goes, the offensive line, still some question marks as well there. The
yeah,
left
it's pretty gross
tackle,
for me.
yeah, the left tackle is just kind of eh. I think Cameron Irving is who they brought in to fill that role. He's
Yeah,
probably going to take over that role, and then the rest of the offensive line. I know they just gave a big extension out there to the other tackle, and
Taylor Moulton, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So they gave a pretty decent extension out to him. Wasn't a really big fan of it, but I understand you have offensive linemen you like. You got to get them locked in while you can. So,
Right.
um, So yeah, we'll see how the offensive line holds up. But yeah, you definitely can't argue the upgrade in coaching and weapons. And this team is going to go as far as Sam Darnold takes them.
And the
Unfortunately,
NFL is just, again, just another, I guess another kudos to the NFL. They know what they're doing. Like week one, the Carolina Panthers play the New York Jets. Like that is not a coincidence. That's not by accident. Like that is,
sports is scripted.
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I mean, look, this team has a chance to get off to and gain some momentum because two of their first three matchup are the Jets and the Texans. They got to play the Saints in between those two teams, but and then they play the Eagles in week 5. So the Giants in week 7. I mean, they've got some winnable matchups early on in the year. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I've got this team picked last in the division, and they could early on, they could make me look like a fool. Now, granted, I think later on in their schedule, will make up for it. Both of their games against Tampa are 2 of the last 3 games of the year. They've got they end their season Tampa, New Orleans, Tampa, and then the Bills before that. Like the last 4 weeks of the year is the Bills, Tampa, New Orleans, and Tampa. So that like I think they lose out, to finish off the year there for those 4 weeks. But they've got a chance to to start off the year with some momentum. And they lost Curtis Samuel and they didn't miss a beat replacing him. Now Terrace Marshall Jr. is a very different player than Curtis Samuel, but that I think their wide receiver room is incredible, like I've already said, and their running backs are great. And the question marks are, does Sam Darnold see a post Adam Gase resurgence, like a lot of guys have seen, and can that offensive line even hold up to give him the time to do so, and then just the step forward that some of the defensive pieces takes and things like that. But I do think that this team finishes last in the division this year, but I love what they're doing in terms of building the team, and I like the coaching staff and things like that. So I do think this team is on the rise, but this certainly is not the year in my opinion.
Yeah. And just to echo that, like I do really like what they're doing. I'm much more of a build from the inside out kind of a guy. Like I would rather you solidify that offensive line and you solidify that defensive line, and that front 7 before going out and getting, the Robbie Andersons and the JC Horns and, basically those type of players. But at the end of the day, like I understand why, because those guys are extremely talented and you don't want to let talented players go or get past you. But because of that, because the offensive line has some question marks and stuff like that, yeah, I don't see there's any way that this team doesn't finish. I mean, unless Atlanta kind of falls apart there with Matt Ryan, which I don't necessarily see. I think that offense is still better than Carolina's. Um, yeah, I have the Panthers picked last, but that doesn't mean that we don't like what they're doing.
Right.
Like I think this team, especially once Brady retires, the Bucks are going to blow it up here in
Mm-hmm.
a couple years. The Saints,
Sometime in the next like 10 years whenever Brady
yeah,
retires.
yeah, yeah, shit. Um, and with Atlanta, they're going to be rebuilding after Matt Ryan. This very easily here in probably about 2 to 3 years could be the Panthers division for the foreseeable future. If they keep building things the right way, if they get the right guy under center, if is that Sam Darnold, we don't know. But if not, they're very well positioned for the future to, maybe be one of those teams here where, you know, every offseason we have the proverbial, quarterback away. Like this team is a quarterback away from competing. Every
Denver
off,
Broncos.
yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully not the Colts this year. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that was a perfect example. The Colts have a very solid roster that they built over years, and then obviously, nobody anticipates Luck retiring, but they're a quarterback away. Well, now they go out and get Wentz. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I have the Panthers losing or finishing last, um, and but I like the direction they're heading. So now we will move on to the New Orleans Saints. Got to be really weird without Drew Brees. under center, man, that's going to be a culture shock for the NFL and for the fans, to say the least. That's and I know, we saw some Taysom Hill a lot last year and stuff like that, and we don't know if Taysom Hill's going to be the starter. We don't know if Jameis is going to be the starter. Nobody knows what Sean Payton's got up his sleeves, but as one of the best offensive minds that's ever coached football, I do trust that he will make the right decision. For me, that would be Jameis Winston. That's who I would go for. I know he's got the
I agree.
turnover machine. Like, I get that, and I know too. Like, everybody wants to like lump Jameis in there because he's the pocket passer and the proverbial, you know I guess, quintessential quarterback. As far as drop back and throwing, but we saw enough Taysom Hill last year to know that he's not the answer for the future. And whatever they're doing there, I think they need to give Jameis a fair shot to see basically what he can do with that roster. And that roster is built to win now.
Mhm.
That is a win now roster. If Jameis can catch fire, make good decisions, I still don't think they overtake the Bucks to win the division, but they very well could be a wild card team.
Yeah, I'm, for whatever, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't know, but I am a Jameis believer, and I refuse to quit that, man. I do think that he is a starting quarterback in this league. Um, and I think with, the offenses he was in Tampa, granted, he made plenty of bad decisions, but those offenses were built for him to just chuck it like that. That was the design of the offense. When it wasn't as I want to use the right word here, but Sean Payton, I think Sean Payton brings more structure than what Jameis has ever had. In terms of play calling, and I do think that he could be a the best version of himself with Sean Payton calling the plays. Now, I don't, to be honest with you, outside of Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, and Michael Thomas, I don't really like the options here. Adam Troutman could be something. He's second year tight end. We'll see with Jared Cook out the door. If he emerges, but I've given up on the Traquan Smith breakout. And I don't really like any of the receivers behind Traquan Smith either. Emmanuel Sanders is out the door now too. So that part is iffy, but this team is going to be, to me, this team's going to be carried by one of the better offensive lines in football, and Alvin Kamara. I think he's in for another huge year. He had the best year of his career last year. I think he has a decent chance of matching that this year. And then in terms on the defensive side of the ball, I think again, the interior defense is, we'll see, but
Yeah, I think outside of Cam Jordan, that there's a lot of question marks there.
yeah, you've got Marcus Davenport coming in. I think he was a rookie last year, right? In this year two for Marcus Davenport, or is this
Uh,
year three?
Year 4.
Year four?
Yeah,
Really already?
yeah,
Shit, it just seems like yesterday they traded up in the first round to grab him. Really?
yeah.
I thought this was his second year. Oh my God, that's crazy.
2018.
Wow. So yeah, this will be year three for him if he was
No,
drafted in
this
2018, 18, 19, 20, no, 21. Shit, really? That was 2018?
yeah.
Wow, that guy has really underperformed. I was thinking that he had plenty of time. Yeah, okay, that's kind of an eye opener for um how much Cameron Jordan has carried them in terms of, edge rushers and things like that. But, I love Cam Jordan. I think he's one of the best players in the league. And then you've got, I think their linebacker core is solid. Marshall Lattimore continues to be a great corner. Outside of that, I think it's kind of lacking personally. But I do like their safeties. So I think this team is going to depend on the offensive line, Alvin Kamara, and then their defense personally. So I think that they are. I think that they will be the best version of themselves if they have Jameis as the starting quarterback. So on the defensive side of the ball, you're talking about Janoris Jenkins was probably the only significant loss that they saw there at the cornerback position. just on, in defense in total. So the defense should be relatively the same. I think they're a middle of the pack defense personally. Like I don't think they're like a top 5 defense or anything like that. But yeah, I think that they're going to be leaning on Kamara and that offensive line a lot this year. And with how good Kamara is and how good that offensive line is, I don't think that's a bad plan either. But I do hope to see Jameis as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, so do I. So I think it's really between them and the Falcons on who ends up second in this division.
I would agree with that. I do have the Saints as second in the division, but yeah, if the Jameis Taysom project goes south,
Yeah,
I could see a world where
yeah,
they get
yeah.
taken.
The quarterback position, and then like you said, like the defense as well. There's some question marks there on the defensive line, and with some of the linebackers, uh, and then really outside of Marcus Lattimore, who's locked in, is wide open competition as well there for the rest of the cornerbacks. Now I do really like Paulson Adebo, kid they drafted this year. I've mentioned him before on our previous shows, but I'm a big fan of him. So I'm rooting for him to win the other job. But yeah, this really, I mean, I think they can come in second. I think if everything works out perfectly, I think they could get into the wild card. They could sneak in. But this is a team that's clearly they're on the verge of basically blowing it up and starting a full-fledged rebuild.
Yeah, I think if Jameis doesn't form into something under Sean Payton, I think that's what you see after this year. Yeah. I think that they blow it because they're in cap hell. They've got a somewhat aging roster, and they've got questions at quarterback, and all of that just kind of seems like if they don't
this
get
is like
the best out of Jameis, yeah, it just seems like it's time to blow it up and start over. Which, to your point, is this is 2 teams now that we've talked about that could be in that position after this year with Atlanta and New Orleans, which leaves Carolina sitting there like, just building things up at the perfect time to where we could be talking about in a couple of years is Carolina and everybody else. So it's interesting, man. And I'm glad we started with this division because it's a really interesting division right now, man. It's a really interesting, like a very.
It's like you've got the coming of age story with the Panthers, and then you've got the old guard that's still hanging on for that past success. With the Falcons and the Saints, and then of course this next team we're about to talk about is just the embarrassment of riches on this roster is just insane. Which, I mean, eventually, look, you're gonna have to pay the Pied Piper. It's gonna come, but whenever you've got Tom Brady, you just got to keep kicking that can down the road until he decides. And what's crazy, so I was looking at the roster, I totally forgot they also have OJ Howard, who's going to be coming back from an injury.
Yeah,
like that is insane to me. Like you might have 3 quality tight ends as well. Along with
Mike to it, they're gonna have 3 quality tight ends because Cameron Brate's coming back. They got OJ Howard coming back, and then Gronk's there to do his thing. So yeah, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Darden, a rookie that I like a lot. Like,
right.
Oh my God.
The only question mark to me, and it's not even really a question mark, is who's going to be the running back. Like to me, because you've got Giovanni Bernard comes in. I think he's probably more than likely the 3rd down back.
He's by far the most talented pass catching back on the team.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's just insane. Brady gets him now. And then you still got Fournette and Ronald Jones who are going to split the early down work. So it's really it's not even really a question mark. It's just kind of who's going to be the 1A and the 1B. And then comes out last week, Brady played on a torn MCL all last season.
Yeah, what?
That is,
dude.
Yeah, so he told too. Apparently, at the end of the season, after they won the Super Bowl, there's a quote that his quarterbacks coach for the Buccaneers put out and said, after we won the Super Bowl, Tom Brady, he told me, he's like, I'll just wait. I'll get my knee fixed up and I'll be even better next year.
I believe that.
I do too. 100%.
I think he will be better this year than he was last year.
Yeah, I think this could be the closest thing that we've seen to his 2007 Randy Moss year. I think this next coming up season might be the closest thing we get to that.
And let me do a quick math check here to make sure I'm not wrong. And he'll be doing that at 43 years old. Well, he'll be 44 years old in less than a month.
Yeah, he'll be 44 by the time, like right around
August 3rd, he's going to be 44 years old. And we're talking about possibly the second best season of his career incoming. Like
Super Bowl favorites. I would honestly say, to me, the Buccaneers and the Browns, to me, on paper, have the two best rosters in the NFL.
Yeah. For the Browns, obviously, the question is quarterback. How far can Baker take that roster? But yeah,
right. And we'll touch on that
top to bottom.
AFC North preview, but
right, yeah, top to bottom, I agree.
Yeah, it's the Bucs and the Browns, and this is just strictly on paper. Obviously, we're not saying the Kansas City Chiefs suck. So before you guys come for us about the Chiefs.
No, because the quarterback position is very important. And whenever you've got Patrick Mahomes instead of Baker Mayfield, that's a big deal, So we're not saying that the Buccaneers and the Browns is a lock and loaded Super Bowl prediction, but
we're just saying, like, so the Buccaneers would be almost like if you put Tom Brady on the Browns.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I mean, the Buccaneers.
I bet Patrick Mahomes. If you put Mahomes on the Browns, that would be kind of.
Now you've got the Buccaneers. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, this is the best roster top to bottom. I mean, you won a Super Bowl, you brought everybody back, and apparently you've got a quarterback
as well.
Yeah, Joe Tryon, right? Exactly. He'll probably be slightly, behind. He'll be behind Shaquille Barrett and JPP, but still, I mean, that's
Vita Vea comes back.
You got Vita Vea coming back. You got Sue back. You've got Levante David, Devin White, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting. Antoine Whitfield Jr., Mr. the I will forget the peace sign in the Super Bowl to Tyreek, this is the best roster in the league. Even if you take Brady out of the picture, top to bottom, I think this is the best roster in the league. And then you put the greatest quarterback of all time, who apparently is coming off a torn MCL injury, slotted in. And on top of that, what was his
touchdown to interception ratio last year on a torn MCL?
Let me see, because that's a good question. Let me see. Tom Brady 2020.
Wasn't it like? Did he throw 40?
He did. He threw exactly 40. I just don't remember the interceptions, but I know he threw 40 touchdowns. 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 102
on one
quarterback rating. Dude,
in his first year with a new offense.
that was about to be my exact point. It was a new offense, completely new team, a lot of turnover on that team, and you kind of saw, like, the new or Tampa
pandemic year as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they had no real off season, and then they basically had to learn on the fly in the regular season, and you kind of saw that they started off 7-5 last year, and then they ended up ending the year on a 4-game winning streak, and you kind of saw things start to click, and then that 4-game winning streak, rolled over into the playoffs, into a Super Bowl win, and
I think by the time that Super Bowl, and look, you can say it till you're blue in the face. Yes, we know Kansas City's offensive line was hurt. That's not the only reason that Kansas City got blown out in that game. There was, you could just tell during that Packers game that it was Tampa Bay and then everybody else. They just had the look of, I don't even know how to describe it. They just looked so far ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody else you watched during the playoffs.
They won 31-9 in that Super Bowl. Like that, the Chiefs' offensive line was not the difference in 31-9. It was a difference. Like, don't hear what I'm not saying, but the score was 31-9. Like, the offensive line is not.
Offensive line didn't make Tom Brady torch that defense in the first half.
No, like, it's not a, it's not a 20+ point difference just because the offensive line was missing. Like, there was more things going on there. And Brady, now he gets a full basically normal full off season
Healthy.
with essentially the same team, same coaching staff that he got to work with last year. Like, I see no reason this team doesn't end the year with the best record in the NFL. Like, because on top of all that, on top of everything we've already mentioned, with everybody coming back and all that good stuff, according to Mike Clay's strength of schedule projections, they have the easiest schedule in the league for the regular season.
Well, playing in the NFC North this year without Drew Brees,
NFC
Landon
South, but yeah.
the Panthers, that's definitely going to help your case. I mean, you're looking at least probably 6 to 7 wins.
And then I believe the AFC division that they play all 4 teams in this year for their schedule is the AFC East, the AFC East with New England,
Yeah,
the Jets, the Dolphins.
Brady's going back to Foxborough, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. I think like week 4 or something like that. So yeah, I'm looking at their schedule right here. I mean, they start the year against Dallas, Atlanta, the Rams, the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Bears, New Orleans, and then they hit their bye. But yeah, they get to close their season, like heading into the playoffs, their last 3 games of the year. They get to finish the year off Carolina, the Jets, Carolina. Like, you talk about some softballs to get you ready for the playoffs. They're going to beat the shit out of those teams getting ready for the playoffs.
Well, also too, like the last game, do they not play Indianapolis?
Week 12.
Week 12. I thought I thought we got added onto their schedule.
Yeah, they play you guys week 12.
So yeah, that's probably the only loss they have on the season. So
they play the Rams in week 3. So, that's, and let's not forget the Rams, did beat them last year too with Jared Goff. So, yeah, so obviously they'll lose 2 games this year, based on this podcast projections. Right. They'll lose to the Rams and the Colts, and then they'll win the rest of their games. But yeah, I see no reason why this team doesn't lead the league in wins this year. And they should absolutely be the favorites to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, and I think the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I mean, based off what they did last year, the team that they're returning, and now the fact that Tom Brady played hurt all damn year last year somehow, and it's just I think I already thought coming into this year that Tom Brady would be better this year than last year, just because of the weird off season and him switching teams and switching systems, coaches,
his whole life.
Yeah, like everything. He changed everything in the weirdest year ever to change and still produce a Super Bowl. So I already thought Brady was going to be better this year before the news came out that he played the entire year with a freaking torn MCL. So yeah, I don't see any reason why this team doesn't finish the season with the best record in the NFL. Personally, like that. I mean, they're easily my pick to win this division. And I'm a Rams fan, so I'm not going to pick them to make it to the Super Bowl. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I think that they should be the betting favorites to make it back to the Super Bowl. Like, there's no reason they shouldn't be. They should be considered the favorites.
Yeah, I'm not a Rams fan, so I'll say yes. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make the Super Bowl. And look, Tom Brady turns 44. We obviously know, Father Time's undefeated. We get that. But just enjoy this next season. If you're a fan of football.
Look, and I can go ahead and tell you, I'm not going to be the jackass to get on here on a recorded session that's going to be posted on the internet and call for Tom Brady's demise, because Tom Brady's going to fuck around and win a Super Bowl next year, and somehow his elite social media team will find this clip, and I will be on a Twitter post from Tom Brady talking about how they weren't going to do it, because his social media team is also the greatest of all time with some of these clips they put together. And
well, not only that, just Tom Brady's Twitter game is just
insane. Insane. Yeah. So
just as a fan, if you're a fan of football, I don't and look, I'm a Colts fan. Okay. Nobody has hated Tom Brady more than I have over the last 20 years. I promise you. He's the entire reason the Colts probably don't have 3 or 4 rings
Well,
out of
look, and on top of that, you're a Colts fan. I already said I'm a Rams fan.
yeah.
Like the last two times my team has made it to the Super Bowl, it's been Tom fucking Brady that sent us home and denied us a Super Bowl victory. So
Well,
like
it,
if you want to look for a podcast that doesn't
hates
like
Tom
Tom
Brady,
Brady,
but
you're here.
yeah, but look, we,
At some
and that's
point,
the
you just
thing
got
is
to
like I
respect
like
it.
the guy too. Like I like the guy. I've never. I mean, I've always been on the train for the most part. I've always thought Manning was better up until obviously like Brady won another 3 rings, and then it was just kind of like okay, like I'll give in. But yeah, it's look. Father Time's undefeated. He's 44. Eventually, you know, and he might ride off into the sun. Nobody knows, but we know the end is coming. It's gonna come soon. Um, it's not this year. So if you are
No.
a fan of football, just enjoy what's about to happen. Just watch Tom Brady. Watch the greatest football player that has ever played the game.
Yeah, because what he's doing at his age
It's
is unheard of.
and not only unheard of in football, it's unheard of in sports. I mean, just
Mm.
in sports in general. Um, but you're getting a chance to watch. This is Michael Jordan in the 90s. And once he's gone, he's gone. Um, there there's not going to be any replacing him. You're never going to see. And look, I'm comfortable saying this. I don't care that Mahomes is in the league. I don't care if whatever. I don't care if robotic quarterbacks come in the NFL in the next 10 years. I don't care. You're never going to see another player that has the career Tom Brady has. It's never going to happen in the sport. So if you are a fan of football, enjoy it while it's here. I will be personally, um, outside of Colts games, I will be streaming and watching every single Tampa Bay game this season. Um, just because as a fan of the game, I don't want to miss what I think is about to be an extraordinary season. And even if it's not, even if something does happen or like, heaven forbid he gets hurt or something like that. But I mean, like I said, this is Jordan in the 90s and it's not going to last forever. So I want to take every chance I get to enjoy it while it's here. And we can let the Mahomes slash, you know, slash LeBron. That's what that is. Mahomes is LeBron, but Brady's Jordan. Brady's the GOAT and he's never going to be touched. And I'm really excited to watch this season. If it is his last, and if it's not his last, I think this is going to be a special year for Tampa Bay. I think this is going to be a special year for Tom Brady. And with it being a special year for Tom Brady, I think it's going to be a special year for the NFL.
Yeah, Brady's kind of gotten to that point to where I hope we don't see. I hope he doesn't stick around long enough for us to see the demise of Tom Brady. Like I don't want to watch him fall apart on the field. I don't want to
Like I watched
watch.
Manning.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Like Manning won a Super Bowl, with the Broncos. Now everybody knows why that Super Bowl happened the way it did, but I don't want to watch that with Brady. He's been so good for so long that I hope he does ride off into the sunset playing at a high level and doesn't we don't have to watch him break down in front of us, playing football. And I'm sure Tom Brady, there's a lot of people out there that really hate Tom Brady that are probably hoping that's exactly what happens so that they can finally, after 30 years, they finally can say, oh, see, I told you he sucks, you know. But I hope that doesn't happen. But I certainly don't think that if it was to happen, that this is going to be the year. I mean, there was nothing that he showed last year that would make you think that he was slowing down. And then what comes out, with his injury and all that shit, like there's no
Well,
reason
no,
for me to believe that he's going to slow
dude,
down this year.
like it literally makes no sense physically. Like somebody was saying, I believe it might have been his quarterback coach again. This might have been the same interview. He was saying that he's throwing harder than he ever has in his career this offseason. Like his ball is faster. like he's getting better. It makes no sense. It makes 0 sense.
No, it doesn't, man. I'm so
Look,
excited to
look,
get
if
to
he
get to
comes
watch
out,
it.
look, I'll put it on the podcast right now, write it in stone right now. If Tom Brady comes out, wins another Super Bowl, and drops 40 plus touchdowns, I will devote my life to the TB12 method. I will buy the book. I will buy the shakes. I will do yoga every day because I want whatever the fuck that dude's got. Yeah, I will convert my life around.
Yeah, man, it's in a sport that is, which granted quarterbacks, as through Brady's career, quarterbacks have been protected more and more, making his life a little bit easier. But even still, man, there's been plenty of quarterbacks that have been playing in the same era that Brady's played in and haven't lasted near as long as he has. So for him to do what he's done at the age he's done, at the age that he's at, it is just like it's not like we're talking about, yeah, Brady's hanging around as like a top 15 quarterback in the league. Like he's just
No,
hanging, he's hanging on. Like he is still at the top of like top 3 quarterback, top 2 quarterback in the NFL. And the man's about to be 44 years old. Like this, I mean,
insane, man.
it's unreal. It really is, man. And um, I'm glad that I eventually moved on. Like I had a lot of hatred for Tom Brady whenever back in 2001, whenever the Pats knocked off the Rams in the Super Bowl, and I carried that for several years, and eventually I finally let go. And honestly, I think the thing that might have done it was whenever they beat I hate the Seahawks probably more than anybody in the league. So watching them beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, I had like it was just like I was able to transfer some of my Tom Brady and Bill Belichick hate just over to the Seahawks and watching them lose. And I think that might have been where I started to really appreciate what I was seeing. And I'm so glad that I let go of that and I've been able to just really enjoy what I've seen from this guy, because it's something, like you've already said, it's something that you're not going to see this ever again. I mean, people might throw for more yards. They might throw for more touchdowns as the league, if the league continues to trend the way it does. Like he's not going to hold
Well,
records.
it doesn't even matter. They've added another game too as well.
Right.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
like they should reset the right. Like
yeah, the record
there
book
should
should
be a
stop.
new record
Yeah,
book that
exactly.
starts this year.
Every record that gets broken, like for me personally, and I know like Kansas City fans are gonna fucking cry, but every record that gets broken from here on out has an asterisk next to it
It
for
should
me
just be
personally.
it should, like not even an asterisk. It should just be a new record book. Like
Well, I'm
they
not
should
saying the
start.
record doesn't count. I'm just saying for me,
No,
it's gonna
yeah,
be like it's not gonna be as impressive as. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
That
yeah. Oh, so and so threw for 55 or 57 touchdowns. Okay, well,
Manning did that in
Manning did
16
that. Yeah,
games.
Manning did that in a game less
Yeah,
where he
yeah.
set for. And I don't even think that was Manning's best season either.
Oh, but the reality is a lot of those regular season records are going to start to fall.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They're like you're going to start seeing guys are going to start passing for 5,000 yards on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Like it's not going to be a one-off. Might have one guy a year. I remember, dude. I remember when 3,000 yards was like a thing. Like that's how long I've been
Well,
watching.
and it's like even if you even think about receivers, like 1,000 yards has been like the
It was like
mark
the
for
benchmark.
receivers, and like now, like what's it like
14,
11 eleven
15.
hundred yards,
No,
1,200.
yeah. Yeah, I think 1,400 is like generally where guys are like that's a great season. Like that is a great season is 1,400 yards.
Yeah, it's. I mean, things are really going to change, man. And I don't know. Let me see. I've got. Look at these projections. So it looks like, yeah, I guess 1,200 yards is kind of the expectation for elite receivers, 1,100 to 1,200 yards, based on just some projections that I've got pulled up. Like Devontae Adams, and these projections, Devontae Adams is going for 1,300, Tyreek's going for 1,300, Dix is going for 1,400,
Yeah,
Hopkins is going for 1,300. Like the elite guys are going for like 1,200 plus. Talking about like the top 12, 15 receivers in the league.
yeah. Before like that used to be like you might have like 4 guys that top that mark. Now you're going to have literally half the starting receivers probably like that. Yeah. And I mean, like, that's a different topic for a different day. But yeah, just basically just enjoy watching Brady while you can.
Yeah, because it's not going to last forever, and it's eventually. I'm never look. There's just going to be one year where I'm eventually just going to have to be wrong, and he is going to, decline. But I'm not going to call for it. I'm not about to be that guy. I've watched too many people be recorded saying that this is the demise of Tom Brady, and then they end up on a fucking highlight reel while he's throwing touchdowns in the Super Bowl on his Twitter. And I'm
But him and
just
Gronk are like dancing and stuff
we ain't
on the block.
going nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm just he's eventually just gonna have to prove me wrong and not be great, because I've given up on that. I've come to peace with the fact that I'm just not going to call for him to fail. Eventually it's bound to happen, but I'm not going to be the one to be able to say I predicted Tom Brady's demise, because I'm not going to be. He's eventually it's going to happen, and I'm not going to be the one who called it. But just to recap, picking today, as far as the NFC South goes, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the division handily, and then I've got the New Orleans Saints second, the Atlanta Falcons third, and the Carolina Panthers bringing up the rear. And I think based on what you said, I think we're pretty much in line on that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if I was a betting man, like I said, the Falcons I could see kind of sneaking in there to 2, depending on what happens with the Saints. But if I was to bet on it, I would have the Bucks, the Saints, the Falcons, and then the Panthers bringing up last.
So pretty lined up. And this is something, last year I tracked this podcast was birthed during the NFL playoffs last year. We tracked our pick'ems and all that stuff. So I'll do the same stuff with this, just as like a fun exercise for us to look back and be able to see just how amateur we were on our picks. So we'll be tracking all this stuff too, and we're going to break down each division like this, on a week by week basis, and then put a bow on it and kind of predict how the playoffs will play out with our division winners and stuff like that too. And then, pick our wild card teams and stuff like that as well. So I'm so glad that we started this, man, because I'm so excited for the NFL season. This just gives me another reason to be excited. Like, I can't wait to run through all these divisions.
Yeah, for sure. And this really gives us a chance to deep dive and talk about some of, granted we are Colts and Rams fans, but there's other teams that like I actively like to root for, and players I actively like to root for. Like this year, one of my teams I'm really going to be paying attention to, which we will actually kind of touch on next week, and that's the NFC North. My mom's a huge Packers fan, but I'm really looking forward to Justin Fields and the Bears this year. Whenever he gets the starting job, I will be tuning into every Bears game I can, just because I really like Justin Fields, and I'm excited to see what that team looks like with a good quarterback, if that, so happens to be the case.
Right.
But yeah, so next week, looking at possibly doing our NFC North preview. And, that way we can kind of go. And to me, like, that's a super, super interesting division.
Yeah.
So many. I mean, obviously you got the Lions, but then the other 3 teams. I mean,
it's
who
wide
knows?
open.
Yeah, who knows? And with the Aaron Rodgers saga going on, it's anybody's for the taking. So yeah, we will end that there. If I'll let Drew do his ending like always, but if you do have any thoughts on the divisions, or specifically the NFC South division, go ahead and drop those in the comments and let us know what we missed. If you're a big fan of the Panthers, Falcons, the Saints, and you think they're going to take the Bucks, let us know why we're wrong.
Let us know why you're delusional.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a Bucks fan slash Tom Brady guy, and you just want to heap praise and share the podcast, then please just hit the share button. So we'll let Drew do the ending, and we will get rolling for next week.
Yeah, as always, thank you for joining us for the beginning of this little journey we've got going on through the NFL leading up to the NFL season. If you made it this far to the podcast, thank you for sticking with us. We're pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found. Google, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts at, you can probably find us. So go search up the Amateur Experts podcast and give us a follow. If you wanna watch us talk about this stuff, listen to watch our ugly mugs while we talk this through. We're on YouTube as well, over at the Amateur Experts podcast. If you do happen to find our channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And whenever you do subscribe, there's going to be a little bell that pops up. You're going to want to click that to make sure that you can be notified anytime a new podcast goes live. We're basically uploading one a week, so you're not going to get blown up with notifications or anything like that. But once one does go up, you'll know about it as soon as it happens. And then of course, if you're still here with us, make sure that you like this video specifically too. It goes a long way in helping us on YouTube, helping us grow and reach more people and get to hear more opinions, like you guys are listening. So if you happen to be a fan of one of these teams, and diehard fans of NFL teams are going to be more plugged in than Landon and I might be. So if there's a player we forgot to mention, or if we're lower on your team than you think we should be, make sure to hop in the comments and let us know, because the great thing about YouTube is it gives us the chance to interact with everybody. And I love having sports debates, even through text and comments and things like that. I'm down to hash it out on that too. So be sure to hop down in the comments and let us know below. But yeah, stay tuned. I mean, if we didn't talk about your team today, it's coming in the coming weeks. We're going to run through each of these divisions. So stick with us, stay tuned, and and enjoy this ride leading up to the NFL season with us.
Yeah, for sure. And just thank you guys so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead, hit the buttons and notification like he said, and we will see you next week with our NFC North preview.